You're listening to Semper's Radio episode number 192, and today is a special interview with an Enneagram Type 6.
Welcome to Simple Roots Radio with Alexa Sherm. Alexa believes that simplicity in life is the key to achieving true and lasting health. And now your host, Alexa Sherm.
Welcome back to this podcast. As always, my name's Alexa, and this is the place to get healthy, live happy, and find more joy. I'm so pumped that you're here in this Ennea Health series. I know it's been a long time in the making, and I hope that you have been loving it as much as I have. I know I've been getting so much feedback and so many ahas of like, this makes so much more sense. Because what we know the diet industry and the food industry is doing is trying to make health very black and white. But what we know is that no two humans are the same. We can group them into populations like through the Enneagram, but really each of you are unique and individual. And so I want this series to be a place not to just label you or define you, but to walk alongside of you and help to show you that maybe this is how you work, and here are some great health rhythms that you can include in your life. So it's my hope that it just helps spur you on and encourage you to make healthier decisions and healthier rhythms that fit you, and also to tell you, hey, you're not alone in this. Like, we're all here, we're all struggling, we all have sin, shames, and fears, and these are some practical ways that you can overcome it. So today, I'm excited to have an Enneagram 6 on. I'm a little nervous. In fact, I recorded this episode before my solo show, which is the first time that I've done this in the Enneagram series. Normally, in helping to prepare for my interview, I did the solo show first and all the research. Well, this time, I did all the research, then I got really nervous that I wasn't going to do Enneagram Type 6 justice, and I didn't have the right set of health routines or ideas down. And so I panicked, I didn't record, and I decided I was going to interview my friend Heidi, who's an Enneagram Type 6, on the show before I did the solo show, so I would have a better understanding of if I was on the right track or not. So today I'm going in with a lot of research, but not a lot of hard facts, and I'm just excited along with you to learn about Enneagram Type 6s. I think they're fascinating people. I think naturally Enneagram Type 6s don't like a lot of things about themselves, but I really want to try and shine light on that and say, hey, some of these things that you don't love about your Enneagram type, I think can be some of the greatest strengths of the world. So today, I have a dear friend on. Her name's Heidi Crone, and she has been a long friend and follower of Semper's Wellness. In fact, she came to one of the very first nutrition classes I ever hosted many years ago. And she has stuck around and she's been loyal. Of course, she's an Enneagram Type 6, but loyal and just true to me that entire time. I've grown so much through her, and I have just loved her encouragement and support. And I'm so excited to learn from her today. So today, Heidi is going to come on and she's going to share all the things about Enneagram Type 6. But as always, make sure you go over to the show notes where you can learn more. Grab the free handout that I have to go along with Enneagram Type 6s. And make notes as Heidi's talking to give you more ideas. So to get to the show notes, you can grab all that information in the show notes at semperitswellness.com/192. But for now, let's get right to the show and welcome Heidi. Welcome to the show, Heidi. You have been a longtime friend and encourager and supporter. I mean, really back to my very first days teaching nutrition, and I have always been honored to have you following along and like such an encourager and supporter to me. So I can't thank you enough for that.
Oh, Alexa, it's so fun to know you, and you've been such a crucial part of my health journey, and I just have such fond memories of the early days of your classes and now watching all of this come along. It's just awesome. So it's great to know you.
Yeah, thank you. Back in the days when we were setting up chairs and a little PT office.
Yeah. And you brought us different vegetables to try cooking with. I still love spaghetti squash.
Good.
So thank you for that too.
Yeah, good. Okay. So today I'm having you on the show because you're an Enneagram 6, and I'm excited to dig in. I mentioned before the show that an Enneagram 6, I've done a lot of research, and I feel like it has been the hardest for me to come up with solid health rhythms that I can recommend. I do have some, so I'm going to run those by you at the end, but I'm excited to learn from you and to dig in. This is the first show that I've recorded the interview before I recorded my solo episode with it. So I'm really like gathering knowledge on this just to make sure that I'm kind of recommending something on a more solid foundation than it feels like right now. So thanks for being here and opening it up. So I want you to give me your brief overview of what an Enneagram 6 is, what you love about it, and what you struggle with.
Sure. So Enneagram 6 is called the loyalist. So in the way that 6s are often loyal to friends, but also beliefs. So that can be loyal to people, but also to religions or theories or even political opinions. And I think on the surface, that sounds really nice. But oftentimes that loyalty is based in this deep desire to not be left without support. So it can be loyal to a fault. It can also be loyal in a self-serving way. Like if I show up for these people, they're going to be there for me when I need it. 6s are in the thinking triad. That just means that we make a lot of decisions using the rational part of our brain. But that also means that we're prone to thinking and overthinking and decision fatigue. And that can lead in a lot of ways to anxiety. And this anxiety is rooted in our core fear, which is being without support or guidance. And then, so I think 6s often live in this pursuit of security and safety. And we seek that oftentimes from sources outside of ourselves. So instead of looking in for our own experiences or what we believe, we're looking for other people to tell us what to do. So in my life, my 6ness comes out in my dependence for structure and routine, because I find a lot of safety in that. So that's maybe one of the biggest things I struggle with, as well as like decision making and trusting people. I'm often skeptical, and that is also really hard. But it also brings great things. Like when we do choose to trust or choose to be vulnerable, those relationships can be really long-standing and awesome. So I think 6s are often good planners and problem solvers, because we are thinking through like, how can my safety be threatened, or what could go wrong? And so we're really prepared for that as well.
Yeah. And when I was doing research for a 6, I kept thinking about this book I had read about anxiety. And I totally think it was an Enneagram 6 that wrote the book, but it was really stating how we have such a bad perception of what anxiety is. And not to say that it's okay or right, because it is coming out of a basic fear, but that there's this fear that people can almost be anxious about being anxious, if that makes sense. Like,
oh, you bet.
Yeah. Like, do you experience that too, where it's just kind of like, you're almost anxious that you're going to get anxious, or because the anxiety is a big thing for a 6.
It is. It's for sure like one of the defining characteristics, which I am not proud of. Yeah. But I think when I was asked to do something for our local church the other day, and my thought process was, what am I doing in the 3 days leading up to that? Because I know I'm going to be a wreck before I have to do it. So it's for sure a part of life that I work through and confront every day.
Yeah. And I would say that the people that I've encountered who are an Enneagram 6 automatically put it down for the fact that the anxious characteristic is a trait, and it's a leading trait of Enneagram 6s. But on the flip side, we know that in every species and every population that there is more anxious characteristics in about half of the population. And the reason for that is because you guys can see problems before most people can see them as problems. Like, you can see and solve problems faster than most people can. And that's really necessary and needed. So it like really does ground the community into reality. And I mean, you know, when we go back and look at every Enneagram has a purpose here, that is a really big purpose of the Enneagrams, is like keeping us built in this reality and preventing people from escaping it. So with that being said, do you feel like, because I look at Enneagram 6s and think that they're probably the most present of all Enneagrams, but I don't know that an Enneagram 6 would describe themselves as that. Do you feel like you're present, or do you feel like you struggle with that? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think the being present probably looks different for 6s. And I feel present in the way that I'm definitely constantly scanning the room, trying to get a feel for what people are thinking, whether that's thinking of me, but also what are they experiencing right now and are they okay? But also present in the way that, like, who is that shady looking character that just walked into the room or into the restaurant? Like, we're hyper aware of those things. So presence in a positive way, but maybe also in a little bit of a suspicious way.
Yeah, to make sure that things are okay or your environment is safe. So how important is it that you live in a safe environment for an Enneagram 6? Or is there no escaping that mindset pattern?
Yeah, it's really important to live in a safe environment. I've heard it described that we constantly live in this realm of, like, if green is safe and red is unsafe, then we're perpetually in, like, that yellow stage. So I think as long as we can find some places like home that feel safe, that's awesome. But yeah, we're usually in this, like, this is not entirely safe. But we also just have to choose to say, like, I choose security today, and I choose to believe that my experiences are true and that compliment is genuine. So it's important to find those safe places, but we also probably have to really work to cultivate them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And going back to your whole belief system, because like you said, like, once you catch on or once it becomes a part of your belief or your values, you really do that's just who you are. And I think that is such a gift and a skill that can make choices like health maybe a little bit easier, but once it becomes like a true belief. So walk me through, like, this pattern of how you, like, let's just go back to health. And you've been on, I mean, I've watched your health journey, like, do all this stuff. How has it been from, like, a place for you of kind of uncertainty or unknown to a belief that it just has become something you do?
Oh yeah, that's huge. I think one of the things that 6s could maybe struggle with in this is adapting new health methods or trying new recipes. Because we're so skeptical. So it's like, what if we're doubtful? Like, if I try this recipe, is it going to fail? Or if I try out this new gym, will people like me? And so it gets really hard to step into new spaces and new rhythms. And so I think to get through that, we're maybe just a little bit slower to adapt, but people that we trust that can come alongside us really help in that. And I think my journey personally is probably just experiencing it for myself time after time. So when it comes to how we choose to eat, it was hard at first to make changes, but then once we felt better making certain choices, it was like, okay, I'm in this and I want to tell other people. And so that's a little bit of our health journey.
Yeah, I like how you said you're just a little bit more cautious to adapt to things. You're not quick to jump on the train of just another diet or like, there's not as much of the emotional component. It's more of the logic behind why you're doing things, correct?
Right, absolutely. I mean, I read countless reviews and I do research, and that's just kind of become part of it. But yeah, once we adopt it, I think I go in with both feet for sure.
Yeah, and you're so loyal to it, which is so awesome. So when it comes to health, one thing that 6s tend to struggle with is this intuition. You're highly aware and you have a great sense of intuition, but you don't always listen to yourself, right? That's why you go to outside sources to maybe be reassured or to find a decisive answer. How have you worked through this intuition? Because in health, I look at intuition and think, gosh, that's one of our greatest gifts and skills, is that if we can understand just this ability to listen to what our body needs and to listen to how it's feeling and even just helping to make decisions. So how have you worked through all of that, or maybe still working through that, and encourage someone as a 6?
Yeah, I think it just takes a lot of time to work that muscle. So to try to even write down the things that maybe you did well, or that went your way, or when your intuition was right, because we have this tendency as 6s to forget the successes, and then that doesn't help trust our intuition. It's 6s, if ones have an inner critic, 6s have an inner committee. So all of these people and ideas that are pulling us in different directions. But ultimately, if you can choose to, I think, rely more on the Holy Spirit for your intuition, but also use your inner committee to say, look at these things I've thought through, and look what I know, and look what God has taught me, or what people have told me to be true. In time, I think that, 6s, it would be awesome to trust our intuition, because we experience and take in so much around us.
Yeah. So has this been a process, or do you feel like, is this something that a 6, like for a 1, like the inner critic's probably always going to be there? It's just learning to work around it. Like, what is that the same with like the inner committee that you talk about? Like, do you ever free yourself of that, or do you think you just learn to use it?
Good question. There's probably a time to silence it, and probably a time to use it. So having discretion in that. So a time to use it might be in a corporate setting, or when you're at home, like with your family. So thinking through like, what could happen here? What do I need to do to set us up for success? That's when an inner committee could say, like, don't forget to think about all of these different things. But there is a time to silence it and say, no matter what happens, I will be okay. So stop thinking through all the things that could happen, and choose peace and choose flexibility over all of the scenarios.
Yeah. And I love that answer, because it is sometimes a choice in how we are perceiving the situation, right? Like how we're perceiving the emotion that maybe we're feeling. And it can be such a hard trap. But one thing that we do know about 6s is that values are incredibly important. And if we can get a 6 to understand values, then we can often get them to make decisions in their life based in what they stand in, I think sometimes and this is hard, because I feel like talking about values is something like, oh, we all understand our values. But I think at a core level, some of us are missing what we really do value. And so how have you used your values to help you as an Enneagram 6, maybe break free of some of this anxiety and indecisiveness, and really kind of walk in that freedom? You kind of mentioned like using the Holy Spirit as your guide, but what else is there?
Things that I value. So I think as a family, really value things like managing our time well, or living life to the fullest, being present, loving others, sharing the love of Christ with others. So as a 6, I maybe try to over plan in order to achieve those things, but hopefully it can help us on the way. So when we look at our week, does our week reflect the things that we value? I don't know beyond that. Do you have any other thoughts on it, or anything that I could clarify?
No, I mean, I think one of the activities that I gave as a 6 in my handout was to go back and dig into what they value. And I think just the understanding of having those values and like laying them out or writing them out, I think can help guide a 6. Maybe what I'm trying to ask is, if a 6 is scattered or uncertain maybe about purpose in life or what they want out of life, I mean, surely it's got to make life so much more fearful for a 6. Right?
Yeah.
Like, what
definitely.
do you use to ground you, I guess is what I'm asking. Like, how do you stand? Like, what is your foundation? Like, how have you come up with a foundation to ground you? Because I feel like the scattering, and I see this in all the head triads, and the 5 was the same way. When they become overwhelmed, they get scattered. Like, life feels more uncertain, more chaotic. Then they stay in their head. They tend to withdraw. I think all of the head triads kind of have something of that means. If we go back to the heart triad, then those are our feelers, and they tend to stuff their emotions and become bitter. That's a lot of emotional stuff. But as a 6, so like a 5 tends to withdraw, become scattered. I mean, there has to be something to ground a 6. Otherwise, you kind of get more anxious, right? And the world seems threatening.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are you
Yes.
using to ground yourself, or how have you come to a place of, okay, I need to ground myself so I don't experience these things? I mean, you just, not to pull in your life, but you just made a cross-country move. And there had to have been a lot of stress involved in that and anxiety. So in the season of basically kind of changing your life, how did you keep yourself grounded in that? How did you keep yourself healthy through that?
Yeah, well, I definitely wasn't always grounded or healthy, but it was such a learning curve. And I think from that, I've learned to develop ways to be a healthier 6. So I have not arrived by any means, but some of it is finding a safe person to process with, because as a 6, if we can speak our anxieties out loud or follow this trail of disaster, if we can say it out loud, it can, I think, show us that, first of all, it probably won't happen, but also if it does, we're ready, or, God will help us through it. So speaking those things out loud to someone safe that won't shut you down and won't say, that won't happen, no, because in our head, it's so real and it so could happen. So speaking that out loud, I think choosing to put away the to-do list is really helpful, because I think oftentimes we try to control everything in our surroundings as a way to feel safe. And that's impossible. Something will always go wrong. And so just to choose to stop doing and just be has been good for me. And then I think gratitude might be one of the most effective ways to combat some of that anxiety and fear, because if anxiety is, this is what is lacking and this is what is wrong or what could go wrong, gratitude is, look what I have, look what is great. And choosing instead to dwell on those things has been really grounding for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you said that, because it is so much of a head triad is just getting you to get out of your head a little bit, whether it's the stillness or the gratitude of reminding you of that, or just to voice what's in your head. Because I've even found, I'm not an Enneagram 6, but I've even found that just speaking my troubles makes them seem like helps them to lose their power, And I think that you could probably easily just let those spiral out of hand and out of control. Yeah. So those are such healthy rhythms to incorporate into your life. Staying on that train, what are some other things that you've really developed as an Enneagram 6 that have worked well for you? Just healthy rhythms or healthy lifestyles in all aspects, whether it's in your mindset or in how you plan your meals for the week or exercise or any of those things.
Yeah, that's a great question. Meal planning is huge. I think decisions are just so hard for me. If I can sit down and plan out my meals and make my grocery list and get there, it just removes a lot of tension or unknowns or things that come up during the week. So that's been great. I've really enjoyed that meal planning side of things. I've also really come to enjoy group workouts. It's been a way to cultivate some friendships and feel a little more challenged. There's accountability. So that's been a good one. I also drink decaf coffee these days because I just don't feel like I need to be amped any more than my brain already is.
Yeah.
So that's been a lifestyle rhythm that I've been doing for quite some time now. And then spending time in the Word is one of the greatest things I can do for mental health as far as a daily rhythm, and choosing to memorize scripture, and that allows me to reset in those anxiety spirals of what has God promised? What am I not believing to be true? And what is true? So those are a few practical ones that have helped me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point, and I'm just going to throw this out here because I want to see your input on this. But I just got asked a question about an Enneagram. Someone wanted to use it in their workplace to help better understand their employees, which I was like, that is amazing, because I feel like once we know people, we know how to communicate and relate to them, and it just brings like that oneness or that community, really tight knit, that we can just work together. Like I know for my marriage, understanding how Peyton works has made a huge difference, because what he sees, I don't always see, and what I see, he doesn't always see. And it's not that he's doing it out of disrespect. It's just how he works. But when we bring in this whole faith aspect, someone asked me, is the Enneagram just how, like, I know that there's a Christian swing, but why, what's different about this than anything else? Like what is the Christian aspect to that, or the faith aspect to that? And I think it goes back to like that grounding aspect, right? Like we all have this sin or this struggle or this fear in our life, and every Enneagram's a little bit different, but it's coming back to the foundation that only Christ can really save us, and only Christ can really make us strong and make us secure. That for every Enneagram is really what this is all about.
Absolutely. And the Enneagram is just a tool. It's not gospel, and it doesn't define me or anyone. Mm-hmm. It's just this way to understand the lens in which maybe I see the world, and how that's different from the other 8 types. But ultimately, I wasn't designed to be anxious or a planner. I was designed to be brave. And I think eventually I don't want the 6 to describe me anymore, because I'm so pursuing the traits that God has gifted me with, and this idea of, just being more like him.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said you don't want this to define you anymore. And I think that is probably the healthiest way that we could, or the highest form of health that we could get to, right? Is that where we're so free from all of this, that we just live the life that God has purposed for us. And I think in that, when we look at the requirements, and what I'm hoping to do here, and I'm going to bring up some of the things that I've recommended for an Enneagram 6, is that this has to challenge you on some level, right? Like it has to pull you out of your 6ness enough to challenge you. But on the other side, it can't be so against who you are that it's not realistic. So it's like finding this balance of like, how do we pull you out of your 6ness to make you do things like be vulnerable, like things that are really going to heal a 6 or whatever Enneagram number, but not push you to the extreme where that's just not realistic for you. And so, like, I feel like if we just go back to the health world, it's a very black and white kind of thing. It's very do this, not that, eat this, not that. And I just don't believe that health, was ever meant to be something that we live for. And in that, we can make it really black and white. So when we come back to this, like, there's got to be a balance of pushing you out, but keeping you content and what works well for you. How have you come to learn that balance? Because you followed me for a long time, and there are things that I've said and done that maybe I wouldn't say now, but how have you come to find this balance in your life of pushing yourself, but keeping you doing what you know you need to do?
Yeah. Things that push me are making new friends, because that's a very vulnerable thing. Making friends is so hard. And especially as we're in a new city, I'm just like, okay, I got to put myself out there, even though I don't know what they're going to say. And I can think through the 10 things that could go wrong in this interaction. And so, just putting myself out there and choosing to make new friends and love others well has stretched me. I think also I am married to a 9, and he's so wonderful and has really challenged me to, by definition, type is peacemaker. And so he is just naturally a lot more peace-filled, and it's wonderful, but sometimes it stresses me out because he doesn't understand all the things that could go wrong. And so that's, I think, finding people that can really pull me out of some of my default tendencies has been healthy. But I also think that 6s bring a lot to the world. So not to stuff or defy the things that we notice or feel, but instead to choose to leverage what is healthy. So to tell my team at work why that's not a good idea can actually be really helpful. So it's a hard balance for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you said that last one, because one of the things that I said for a 6 is to be more assertive in decision making. Yeah. And again, that kind of comes back to just kind of trusting that your knowledge is enough, that what you know is enough. And I think 6s are naturally aware enough to see and hear other people's opinions, that assertiveness for a 6 could actually be a really healthy thing to express that, like you said, in workplaces, as opposed to just kind of sitting back. Because I think one thing that, again, going back to kind of what we said in the beginning, that 6s often downplay can also be one of their greatest strengths. And that is the ability to see things that other people cannot see. And I think that's what's so cool about this, is that we all, like, it's opening the door to say, hey, we all see things and do things a little bit differently. And we all need each other to pull us back to that place of health. And so Absolutely. 6 is owning the ability to see things, even in their anxiety, even if it's something that's been formulated, because that can happen in anxiety. But just like you said, to be able to speak that, and there's enough other types that will put you in your place if it's not accurate, right? Like,
yes, but we totally need to use our voice. We have been gifted in so many ways, and to stifle that does an injustice to our friends and family. And so, totally use your voice. Speak up.
Another one that was create order and chaos. So a 6 is, again, planning, meal planning, planning for life, because overcoming decision fatigue is a really big battle for 6s. So how do you do in your life? You kind of said you do meal planning. What else do you do that helps you? Are you a planner by nature, or is this something that you just have learned you need to do?
No, this is my bread and butter. I love organizing. I love structure. So I see it in my own life in how we run our home. I just think that we try to have less stuff so that everything can have a place, because I don't want to take the mental capacity to, clean everything all the time or organize everything. I just want to put it in its place and move on. So I love to have a smooth running home, or I try to do that. And I love that part of it. So that's a big one, is keeping my environment comfortable. And to me, a lot of that is organization, and love it. I could, if I could do that every day, that people just hire me to organize their house, I would love that, for sure. And then meal planning is a big one. I also try to take the time each week to sit down with Chris, my husband, to look at how are we spending our money and how are we spending our time. And that's been really helpful, because it's in front of both of us where we're at on things. And then I can choose to not dwell on them as often as some of those like unknowns or gray areas. So I don't know. It could be a 6 thing. It could be just a personality trait. But I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of 6s have that tendency for organization and planning. Yeah.
That's so good. And like you said, it just keeps you kind of, I think it takes the fixation off of things that you could be anxious about, but you just know in certainty. Like little things like meal planning. Absolutely. Like it could be something that you could become decision fatigue and then anxious about. That's really unnecessary use of your energy when you could just plan for it. And then if you start to use this planning, then you can do things that really do push an Enneagram 6 out of their 6ness, like trying something new, whether it's something simple like a new recipe or a new workout or going to a new place, because all of this could be more challenging for an Enneagram 6, especially outside of the research. So it's trying something new without researching that new thing. How do you feel about that?
I mean, it sounds a little scary, but I think it's so true. If all of our energy is on the things to like keep the home running well, or to keep your kids alive, or to stay successful in your job, if that's all that our energy is going to, because those things do take a lot of energy from 6s, then there's not a lot left over to enjoy new things or to choose to step out in those areas. But I can just imagine how sad life would be if I didn't try new things sometimes. And it's easy to see that in hindsight, but I'm so glad I tried that. It's just hard to choose it in the present. So making space for that and having people to push you in that way is probably a really good thing too.
Yeah. Yeah. I again, it's like this whole entire balance of pushing yourself to grow, because growth is not in anyone. Can be difficult and take discipline and be scary. Anything new can be hard, but that's where we really do see the growth. So it's kind of like this balance of pushing yourself outside of it, but then coming back to who you are. So the other thing that I wanted to kind of balance that with was just creating like a calmness. Like, how can you get a 6 or any of the head triads out of their head and back into kind of the reality of where life is? And I just encourage people to create a calm list. So that could be anything that really just creates that space and that stillness to just be. And I think this is especially important because I think we tend to be people of extremes, and we don't see this quite as much in 6s as the other Enneagram types. You tend to be a little bit more protective, right, in your safe spot. But even at that, we can see that 6s can go to extremes and then be unwilling to kind of come back to a balance because that extreme has become so normal for them. And that's why I really do appreciate like the calm list or basically things that can help ease your anxiety, because anxiety has a tendency to spiral, and it can spiral quickly. And so what are some things that you have learned over, and you've mentioned quite a few, like talking to other people and opening up, but what are some things that you've learned that really just help bring you calmness in your life?
Yes, I love to journal, and that has really helped. It provides a safe space to process emotion or write down prayers, and then also look back and reflect on how God provided or when he was faithful. So that's a big one. Prayer is also great. God is there to listen and encourage and direct. So seeking him as my ultimate influence is so much better than the inner committee or trying to figure out what other people want me to do. Like, to just center that and look to God for those answers in that direction, and that peace is really calming. I think others, like small practical things, I love to light a candle. That's just a fun way to feel like my environment is cozy. I love having a dog. I don't know if other 6s would say this, but he's the epitome of safety and loyalness and snuggles. So that's really great. Maybe a fun one would be, so not wholesome in a way, but Hallmark movies, they always have happy endings. And so I can just rest. There's no worst case scenario in a Hallmark movie besides like the ex-boyfriend showing up or so. I mean, those are just a few, but it's really important to figure out what that is for each person and try to enter those into daily rhythm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think all of this, I mean, this is so great because all of this is to say that 6s tend to live more in this fear-based mindset. And that fear is really just closing people off to life and to health. Like, if we just come back biologically to health, which when we get into December, I'm going to do this whole series on, like, we were designed to live in love. Like, we were designed to be creatures of love. And that's studied biologically, and it opens up our cells and it opens up our body, and we just experience life in a different way, and we experience all the foods that we eat. And so I think it's important as 6s, as it's a tendency to live more in the stress, anxiety mindset, that to know that easily closes a person off. And it's so good for a 6 to have daily rhythms where you do just calm yourself, like where you do reading and journaling, or whatever it is for you to just really just bring you back to this place of like openness and love. Because that's, I think, what a 6 is seeking the most. Right? Is that definitely security?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It can be so exhausting to put out these feelers all the time. Like, what is this person thinking? And am I loved? And am I enough? And that can be so exhausting. And so to come out of that and to choose love and choose safety, even if it doesn't feel it all the time, I think can only empower a 6 to make bold choices and to show up and bless others with the gift that they've been given.
Yeah. Yeah. So on those lines, how would you like to encourage other Enneagram 6s?
Oh, 6s. So special to me. Remember your successes. Don't forget compliments or not trust your own intuition. Like we've talked about, you are so valuable and you are so worthy and you bring so much to this world. It just is a blessing to show up. And in that, know that you're so brave because you showed up. So if 6's core fear is fear itself, then every day that we get up and do something new or different or even the same, it takes so much courage. And so you are courageous, and I think God will use you when you show up and choose to be courageous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so good. Just show up. It's such good advice. Okay. As someone who's not an Enneagram 6, how can we be encouraging to you?
Yeah. So if you know a 6 or are in relationship with a 6, I think constant affirmation is really helpful because we're constantly questioning. And so if you can silence those doubts with, I love you, and this is what I see in you, and this is what is good about you. I think, just need that, just like any person does, but especially to help silence those doubts or the questioning is really good. And again, don't tell a 6. That probably won't happen because it is such a scary scenario in our head. So there has to, choose compassion in that moment and patience, and just let us work that out with you would be huge.
Yeah, that's such good advice because like you said, we all think differently. So to just encourage and to listen to other people's fears and concerns rather than just dismiss it is such great and wise advice. You're so wise, Heidi. I love talking to you. You really are.
Thanks,
yes.
Alexa.
You have always been, honestly, one of the things I love about 6s is just the loyalty to people, and just there's this deep rooted wiseness about 6s that I just love and hold dearly to. And it's such a safety net for me as someone who's not a 5 and in this world to be like, I know I have my people, and just to have those safe people. And I totally consider you one of those as a friend of mine who's been on this journey with me for a long time. So thank you so much, Heidi, for all that you've given to me. Life would not be the same without Enneagram 6s. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Alexa. It is a joy, and I am loyal to Simple Roots. That's for sure.
You're so sweet. Okay, before we go, I have a few quick fire questions just for fun, and then we're gonna wrap this thing up. So, Heidi, what is the first thing you do every morning for your health?
The first thing I do every morning is journal. I sit down with my candle and a cup of coffee and process some of those fears, some of those anxieties and insecurities, but also ask God to guide me, remind me of what he says and his promises, and spend some time praying. That's a big one.
Yeah. And I think that's huge. And the research that I did with Enneagram 6s is one of the best things that they can do is to kind of get their thoughts out of their head, and journaling and prayer and those kind of things is really vital. But that's, across the board, right? We could all be doing that. So, another question is, what's your favorite health book or book that you have used to really help heal you and grow you as a healthier person?
So my favorite health book, I think I would go back to Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. Just the teaching on vulnerability and getting into the arena is one that I think a lot of people could benefit from, and I have loved and should probably reread often.
Yeah, it is a really great book, and I think I would agree that it's a great book for anyone to read. And I like anything from Brene Brown. Did you watch her documentary on Netflix?
I haven't. I have it on my list. I just have a hard time sitting down to do those things because I don't put away the to-do list.
Yeah,
Have you watched it?
I did. It was, I was kind of like you. I was like, like, I don't know if I want to take the time for this. It was really good. It was really, really good.
Okay.
It's very captivating because she tells her story and it's just very real and vulnerable. It's definitely worth listening to. Yeah. Or watching.
Okay, good.
Yeah. It's really good. It's not like you would think. It doesn't like follow her life. It's literally her giving a talk on a stage the entire time. But it's
she
really
is loaded
captivating.
with wisdom.
Yeah. So good. You should do it for real. You won't regret
Okay.
it. And
good. Thank you. That's what I needed. See,
yeah.
I was just afraid to take the time.
Yeah.
Tell me
you will really like it. It was one that I even told Peyton. I was like, I want to go back and listen to that again. And I think you would like it too. So it's on my list to watch one more time. Because I'm always worried Netflix is going to take it off. Like that's my fear. It's going to leave and I'm going to forget. I'm not going to gather enough information from that. So I think it's still there. But yeah, it's definitely one on my list to watch again. Because I feel like her information is like you hear it, and you almost, like with Darren Greatley, you almost need to read it again or go back and get it, listen to it again. Because it is that deep, simple but deep work that really does make more of a difference than just the surface level stuff that a lot of us are just used to.
Right.
So yeah,
right.
Makes you think. Anyways, okay, last question is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received and want to leave us with?
Ooh, the best advice I've ever received. Okay. I will leave you with one of my favorite taglines that was told to me by a couple wise girlfriends before making this move. And it is that God's got it. And that applies to maybe the dinner that you're hosting or to your bank account, your future, your marriage, your health scares, whatever it is, just to coach yourself and just say, God's got it. I don't have to because God's got it. That's my favorite.
Yeah. So good, Heidi. And it's something I've been writing down every day just this last month, which is so funny you bring it up, is God's not surprised. He knows that he knew this was going to happen. Like he has a plan, like just all the reassurance of like, he knows.
Right.
Such a breath of fresh air though, to have that foundation and to be able to stand in that and help fight through some of the fears that we all face on a daily basis and just live more in truth and founded in that, because in that, then we can go out and do bigger things and better things. And I think that's my encouragement to a 6 is that I think it's easy to let anxiety and stress and worry escalate and almost make it who you are. And I don't think that's who you are. Even I still love what you said, like that your goal would not to be even classified as a 6. And I think that should be all of our goals, is to not be labeled by something, but to just continue to grow in life. So thank you so much for saying that. I think it's probably the most wise words that we've had on this series yet. So thank you so much for sharing.
Whoa.
I mean,
goodness,
it was good.
I'm not worthy.
Yeah, no, it was really good. Yeah. But it's so true. You know how many people are just live labeled and live strapped to the spiral and just have a hard time getting out of that.
Right. Or use it as an excuse.
Yeah.
Like I'm just anxious. That's just stop and let me be anxious.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not who we were designed to be. And I really thank you for saying that. So I think it's just all this to say that we're going through this Enneagram series, but the whole idea is exactly what you had said, is that this is not like in health. We should not be labeled as a number, that we should just grow above that and get to a place where we're not defined by these fears anymore because we've overcome them. And I believe that everyone can do that. Obviously, there's a faith component there too, to help you do that. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, Heidi, and sharing your wisdom. I'm like racking my brain of like, okay, what's the next topic I can have Heidi come on and talk about?
Oh gosh. Well, I just don't want this to be over. You are the best.
Well, thank you so much for being here. It has been an honor, and I can't wait to share this with everyone.
Yes. Well, it's been a joy for me too. Thanks for all you do from a health perspective. And I'm not kidding you. You started us on a journey toward health. It's just crazy to look back. It's got to be like, I don't know, 6 years ago probably, that we sat in a classroom and I learned how much sugar is in food and what gluten does to the body. We studied hormones. I'm a better person. And so are my husband and my mom because of it. So thank you.
Oh, you're the best. Yeah, it has been, I think, 6 years. I think I just had my second daughter when we were doing it. I'm not sure, somewhere around there, but yeah.
No, because you were pregnant. It just started to show and you were like, here, I'm teaching this health class and I have this bulge. Like, are people going to believe what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's been a journey. Yeah, for sure.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. I told you guys, she is so wise and I have loved having her on. It's funny, for a long time, I've always kind of pondered, how can I get more of my friends to come on the show? And not to say that there's anything wrong learning from researchers and doctors and people who are really studying the field. I love that aspect. But don't you also love to hear from people who are just living it? To get outside the black and white and the research and really just to understand, okay, how is this working in real life? How are you doing this and how have you grown from this? Like, there is so much power there. So I have loved doing these interviews. And I hope in the future that I can figure out ways to continue to incorporate these into the show. And by the way, do you like them too? Like, would you love to see more of these interviews of just everyday people who are out here in the world living healthy lifestyles and trying to figure this out? Let me know what you think. You can always shoot me an email at alexa@simplerootswellness.com. But for now, let's get back to Heidi because she was amazing. And I loved so much the comment where she said that her goal is not to be labeled as an Enneagram type 6, but to grow so much in health that she no longer is confined by that. And that's what I love about the Enneagram is that I think some people like to think it's a box that it places you in. It's another label. But I think the purpose of the Enneagram is really to take the lid off the box and to say, hey, here's some ideas about who you are, but really, here's how you can grow in that, become the healthiest version of yourself. Here's how you can escape the box of the labels of what that is and the fears and the sins that hold you back. So I think we should all just kind of let that soak in. I know I'm going to let it soak in the next few days, but that is it. That is health, right? It's a continual desire to grow and to change and become a better version of yourself, knowing there's no arriving, but there is freedom on this other side of that, and that we are not who we have been labeled to be. We are so much more than that. So soak that in, take all this advice from Heidi. Don't forget to download that free Enneagram guide for Enneagram Type 6 over in the show notes at simplerootswellness.com/192. And as always, share it with your friends and family. Get them on the board about a new way to do health, a way that meets you right where you are, making health not just another thing you have to do, but who you are. So take a screenshot of the show, pop it on social media, drop it in some emails, and tell other people. I would love to have them join. Also, can I just tell you, I'm so thankful for you and what you do here at Simple Roots. I know I'm sharing the love about all of my friends here, but it's also you. Like, I could not do this without you. So thank you so much for staying tuned. And really, the show is for you. So at any time, please let me know, what would you love to hear on the show? What topics, ideas, interviews, guests that you would like to see? I respond to every single email. I might regret saying that on a live podcast, but I really do. I'm here for you and I want to best serve you. So if you have any ideas, recommendations, comments, feedback, shoot me an email at alexa@simplerootswellness.com. I would love to hear from you. Okay, that's it for today. Next week, we drop Enneagram Type 7. And yes, my sister's coming back on the show, which is always an interesting and entertaining show. So stick around for that, and I will see you back here next week.